Hey, what's up, church? This is Andrew, and I'm up here at New Life Church in Fayetteville. And today we are going to be going over Acts chapter 15. I don't know about you, but anytime I hear the word conflict or have any conflict, it always just is met with a little bit of anxiousness and some negative feelings about it. And really, what I started thinking about after reading through this is times in my life where I've had some conflict, but it was resolved. And that feeling on the other side is actually an amazing thing. I don't, times in my life, maybe it's been a friend or my wife, we've had an argument or disagreement, and then we resolve it. And that moment that you resolve the conflict, that feeling of your relationship is stronger. And it's hard to describe, but if you've had that happen to you, you kind of understand that conflict is actually a very positive thing for relationships when it's resolved. Now, going through it is not fun, but on the other side of conflict, it's if it's done in a healthy way, it can really strengthen a relationship. And so it says some men came down from Judea, and they were teaching, and they were basically teaching the Gentiles that they had to follow the customs of Moses to be saved. And so that's what's happening. And then in verse 2, it picks up and says, after Paul and Barnabas had engaged them in serious argument and debate, Paul and Barnabas and some others were appointed to go up to the apostles and elders in Jerusalem about the issue. So the first thing that jumped out to me is that arguments and debate is okay. It says that they had to engage them in serious argument and debate. Conflict just happens. It's just part of being humans, and it's okay. So that's the first thing that kind of jumped out to me. The second thing is that they inquire of others. And so verse 2 says, after they engaged them in serious argument and debate, Paul and Barnabas and some others were appointed to go up to the apostles and elders in Jerusalem about the issue. So sometimes it's good to inquire of others. I would say, scratch that. It's always good to inquire of others. If there's somebody in our lives that speaks wisdom into our lives, maybe it's a mentor, maybe it's a parent, or it's a spiritual advisor. I can't tell you how many times I go head first into conflict that I'm having and I don't inquire about anybody, and it never turns out good that way. There's something very wise about inquiring of others, and that's what they did. They were going to inquire about this conflict with the apostles and the elders. And then they go and inquire, and in verse 6, it picks up with the apostles and elders gathered to consider this matter. And then verse 7, after there had been much debate, and that just jumped out to me. I wrote, have much discussion, have much debate. I think that's a very important thing. Usually when conflict happens, it's because there's maybe a breakdown in communication, and there's only one side that's talking, or one side that's having any kind of communication, and that's just not healthy. It's healthy to have much debate. It's healthy to talk things through and to communicate. It's the only way that we can resolve it. Conflict is left unresolved when one party, or maybe both parties, quit talking to each other, just refuse to communicate. And so there's something that just jumped out to me is it's okay to have much discussion. It's okay to do that. And so they gathered together, they had much debate, and then Peter stood up and basically gave what he was thinking, goes on, and James even chimes in and says what he thinks about it. And then basically what the decision is that they decide to write a letter and send it back to the church in Antioch, I believe is where it was, in Antioch, and with Paul and Barnabas, and the other people that were appointed to go with them. So they send this letter back, but something stuck out to me at the end. It says, verse 27, so they're sending the letter back with them. And then in verse 27, it says, therefore we have sent Judas and Silas, who will personally report the same things that were in the letter, that will personally report the same things by word of mouth. And so I wrote something good that can happen in conflict is witnesses, or maybe another way to say it is like a mediator, or someone that's in the middle, someone that can just give account. Maybe they're not in the middle. They're just their sole reason is just to say, this is what I heard, and now this is what I'm relaying to you. And it was accompanied by the letter, but that was wise that the elders and the apostles did that. So they knew that it really wouldn't be enough just to send it in a letter, but they were like, hey, we want to send these two guys who we know that you trust, and they also are going to say the same thing, so that you know it's legit and you know that it's what we want. And so I think there's something powerful about that. And then, so it says in verse 30, so they were sent off and went down to Antioch, and after gathering the assembly, they delivered the letter. And then verse 31, when they read it, they rejoiced because of its encouragement. And so I wrote, receive the answer, receive the determination, move on from whatever that is. Many times there has been a resolution to conflict in my life, and I have not accepted it. I have not wanted to move on from it and let the relationship strengthen and just accept, okay, this is what we are going to agree on. And there's something very powerful, and it says they got the letter, and it says they rejoiced because of the encouragement, which the Gentiles were excited because they weren't going to have to follow all of the Jews' customs. But in the letter, if you read, there were some things. I think John's the one that brought it up, that it is good to do certain things, and he listed, abstain from sexual immorality and things like that. So it wasn't just you can ignore everything. But anyway, I just thought that was really cool that they received the determination, and they were rejoicing because of it. And then the last thing is, at the end of this chapter, something completely separate happens. So all that is resolved. And then in verse 36, the little section, your Bible has the little sections in their title. The section is titled Paul and Barnabas Part Company. And verse 36 says, after some time had passed, Paul said to Barnabas, let's go back and visit the brothers and sisters in every town where we have preached the word of the Lord and see how they're doing. Barnabas wanted to take along John Mark, but Paul insisted that they should not take along this man who had deserted them in Pamphylia, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, and had not gone on with them to the work. So Paul was like, I'm not taking this guy. He deserted us and didn't continue to help us in what we had to do. They had, verse 39, they had such a sharp disagreement that they parted company. And Barnabas took Mark with him and sailed to Cyprus. But Paul chose Silas and departed. After being commended by the brothers and sisters to the grace of the Lord, he traveled through Syria and Cilicia, strengthening the churches. And that's how chapter 15 ends, with basically Paul and Barnabas splitting ways. And in chapter 16 is where Paul and Silas, they get beaten and thrown into prison. I'm sure Barnabas was like, ha. But it was just very interesting to me, and I wrote down, agreeing to disagree is not always bad. It's sometimes you just agree to disagree. And I think it's just important to see that that's what was modeled here. They couldn't even go along together with each other. They parted ways, which is unfortunate, but there's something just very natural and just a powerful thing to understand that it's okay to disagree. And sometimes that means parting ways, but that's okay. And so I hope this was encouraging. There's a lot, obviously, that I need to learn from it. And I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you soon.